Hey, welcome back to another creepy TikTok. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button if you guys are enjoying these videos, because they are banning and censoring me because they do not want you guys to see these videos. So make sure you're watching it, get that popcorn, and get ready. Let's get into it. Enjoy.
It happened to me several years ago when I was in college. It was just after finals and winter break was starting, so they gave us a little under a week to get our stuff together and leave for the month. I'm not sure if all colleges did this, but ours didn't allow students to stay in the dorms during large breaks, like winter and summer. Anyway, my parents were supposed to come on the very last day possible. I didn't have much to pack, so I just waited. During these days though, I said bye to all my friends and the whole building was pretty much emptied immediately. It was winter break after all, so everyone was eager to leave. My parents were driving though, and they had busy lives, so that's just how it was for me. I honestly didn't mind the quiet though, but it was the night before my parents were going to arrive, and basically no students were here anymore. Around 10 o'clock, I got ready for bed and turned off the lights in my room. I don't think it was even 5 minutes later when a knock came from my door. I jumped, as it kind of freaked me out. I had no idea who could possibly be at my door, given all the people I knew had already left. Not to mention, it was 10 p.m. Regardless, I got up and went over to the door. When I opened it, I was surprised to see a large, young man standing there, bundled up in a winter jacket. He looked like a student though. "Can I help you with something?" I asked. He asked me if I'd seen a guy here. He didn't give me a name, but rather just described his features. Before answering, I asked why. I had no idea who I was talking to or why he was at my door, so I wanted some answers first. He stumbled out a few words before settling on saying that he was his roommate and he wasn't sure where he went. But if he was his roommate, then why didn't he just give me a name? It all seemed really weird. I wasn't sure how to respond, and stood there for a moment, thinking of what to do, before he interrupted my thoughts and asked me something really bizarre. "Can I check if he's in your room?" I immediately said no and began shutting the door. The guy stopped me though, putting his hand on the other side. He wasn't trying to push it open, but he was pushing hard enough to keep me from closing it. I told him to back off as sternly as I could, but he again asked me to check my room. I didn't know what the fuck was going on, but I knew I needed to find a way out of this quick before it escalated to something a lot worse. I only had a few seconds to think, and I realized in those moments that I'd already messed up by opening the door in the first place. I guess spending so much time living in a dorm, I never had a reason to fear opening my door. I backed up, letting the guy open it fully. He smiled. I gestured with my hand, allowing him to come inside. I barely had anything in here, nothing worth stealing if that's what he was after, so I hoped this would get him to be in and out quickly. As soon as he took a few steps and passed me in the room, I walked out the door and into the hallway. He turned and looked at me, as if I had offended him by walking out. I just didn't want to be trapped in a small room with this random big dude. He glanced around my room for a few seconds, then he came back into the hallway, and without saying another word, he left. I had no clue what just happened, but the more thought I gave it, the crazier it seemed. Thinking about his appearance, I knew it was snowing, so it wasn't odd that he was wearing thick winter clothing. But what was odd was that he seemed to have just come from outside. His jacket had water droplets from recently melted snow, and his nose was red like he'd been out in the cold, snowy night for a while. I just didn't understand what random student would go straight from outside to my dorm room on the 3rd floor and knock on my door at 10 p.m. Why was he even asking me? How did he know I was here? There's 100 rooms in this building, and he happened to knock on mine. Nothing made sense at all, and it kept me up all night. I even moved my small dresser in front of my door, just in case. Before my parents picked me up on the following day, I decided to walk over to the police department across the street. When I told them what happened, they seemed to be a lot more interested than I had expected. I answered a ton of questions until finally they told me what was going on after ruling me out from being a suspect. A kid on the floor below mine was missing yesterday morning when his parents came to pick him up. He had no roommate, and with the building so empty, it made the case a lot more difficult. Obviously, hearing about the guy at my dorm last night, they were thinking it may be a good lead. But days turned to weeks, and then months. I don't know what happened, as it's been many years. I think back about how that guy at my room knew that someone was missing, and said it was his roommate, but obviously he was lying. I don't think he ever turned up either. I also think about why he came to my room specifically, and if he planned to make me go missing as well. He also could have just been some random guy looking for his friend, but that seems unlikely due to all the coincidences. There's so much I don't know, and unfortunately, we'll probably never know.
This is the terrifying truth behind Santa Claus. Now, everyone knows who Santa Claus is. He's the guy that comes down our chimney and gives us presents every Christmas. You leave cookies and milk out for him on Christmas Eve, and then he comes to your house and gives you all the presents. But what if I told you he's more terrifying than just that? But before I tell you the truth about Santa Claus, hit the plus button. A family was at a mall shopping around Christmas time one year, and as all malls have, they have a mall Santa. So they let one of the younger kids go and see Santa Claus. After he waited in line, he was able to sit on Santa's lap, and he told Santa what he wanted for Christmas this year. Santa acknowledged everything that he wanted, but then he whispered in his ear. Then the kid runs away from Santa and goes to the family. They ask what was wrong and why he ran away from Santa, but the kid didn't say anything, so they just ignored it and went back home. Later that night, after they were all tucked in and ready to go to bed, the kid heard a strange tapping noise coming from his window.
Frosted window panes, candles gleaming inside, painted candy canes.
Mall Santas are so incredibly creepy, and this is why you should never go to one. So this 4-year-old and her mom went to the mall to go shopping and see Santa. It was the 4-year-old's turn to go sit on Santa's lap, and so when she did, her mom got super uncomfortable. He was looking at her in such a creepy way. After the 4-year-old told Santa what she wanted for Christmas, he winked at her and said bye. They continued going shopping, and when they got out of one of the stores, he was sitting right there, like facing the store, and staring at the little girl. The mom grabbed her and went to the food court. She was getting really creeped out. So they were eating, and the Santa came up to their table, and he went up to the 4-year-old, and he said, "Remember to be good so Santa can bring you so many presents." The way he said it was really creepy, and then they went home. The next morning, the mom noticed a car sitting outside of their house. She didn't recognize the car, so she went up to the mailbox to pretend to get mail, and she also looked in the car, and all she saw was a Santa hat on the seat, which was creepy, but it's also Christmas, so she didn't think much of it, and so she went inside, and then she looked out the window a little bit later, and she saw the Santa, like literally the Santa at the mall, and then once he saw her looking at him, he sped away. And then that night, the mom, the husband, and the 4-year-old all slept in the same room. And then in the middle of the night, they heard a car pull up. And so they looked outside. It was the Santa walking towards the house. He walked up to the 4-year-old's bedroom, and he started tapping on the window. It was really weird. They were just watching him while calling police, and he was talking to the window, thinking the 4-year-old was there, and he was saying, "It's Santa, come take a ride on my sleigh. I'll show you around." And then once the cops got there, the husband went outside and tackled him to the ground, and he got arrested. And then the police searched his car and they found duct tape and a rope. I do not like mall Santas. It's really creepy because they're literally like old men, and you're having your young kids just sit on his lap and you don't even know what he looks like.
This Santa is so creepy. Isn't he creepy?
On Christmas in my town, Children go missing. For the last 3 Christmases, without fail, the worst has happened. A child has gone missing. I remember it like it were yesterday. Parents used to let their kids play freely in the icy snow outside, and now it's just empty. Children can't be children. There were no Christmas trees, Christmas carols. It just became a sad holiday in my town. The first to disappear was Tommy Graham. He was 11 years old, and although I'd seen him around, I didn't really know him personally. I remember my mother crying about it. Just the thought of something terrifying happening to a child distressed her greatly. That Christmas, my dad held on to me tighter than he had ever before. The following year, another Christmas came and another child was taken. Her name was Cheryl, and she was only 4 years old. And just like Tommy the year before, little Cheryl was never found. Despite everything that was going on, it wasn't until the 3rd child disappeared that I was truly heartbroken. His name was Finn, and he was one of my friends. We lived on the same street. We would walk to school together each day. My dad used to take us to the cinema most Sundays. Finn was like part of the family, and I still think about him to this day. Where would he have been now? What would he have done in his life? What happened to my best friend?
Scary Christmas Urban Legends, Part 2. According to this legend, it was Christmas Eve, and a dad wanted to dress up as Santa to surprise his kids and wife. He got on his Santa suit and he decided to slide down his chimney. However, about halfway, he got stuck and died from asphyxiation. But it gets worse. That same night, his wife was like, let's start a fire, get in the cozy spirit. Shortly after, she realized a bad smell coming from the chimney. That's because it was her dead, burning husband. This legend always creeped me out as a kid. The scariest part is that this has happened before. A robber in England was trying to enter people's home through their chimneys, and, well, he got stuck. Obviously, the family didn't know that he was in there, and later started a fire, and, well, you know. So it's happened before. Don't climb in chimneys. Happy holidays. Follow me on YouTube for more creepy stuff.
Sorry, there's a lift. Oh, avalanche! 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 Oh shit!
This is Krampus, the evil version of St. Nicholas and Santa Claus, who, instead of enticing children to be good in order to get presents, scares kids from misbehaving with a fate much worse than coal in their stocking. Krampus is just one form of alternate universe, mythical winter holiday creatures, not to be confused with Belsnickel, a similar folktale variant of a Santa Claus companion, famously portrayed by Dunder Mifflin's Best Paper Salesman.
No one fears Santa the way they fear Belsnickel.
Besides his obvious devil-like appearance from the sharp teeth to the massive horns, Krampus has a few other defining characteristics. He is virtually always depicted holding a collection of branches, commonly referred to as a switch, to smack children with. Again, not to be confused with Belsnickel.
I judge you here as impish. Oh! Are you nuts? I judge you impish! Ow! Ow!
Krampus also typically carries a basket with him, the diabolical version of Santa's bag of gifts, which he stuffs bad kids in to take them away to hell, and sometimes even eats them. The history of Krampus, along with other versions of Santa's evil companions, goes back centuries. Originating from Central Europe, primarily Germany and Austria, the creature was first tied to pagan celebrations surrounding the winter solstice. But as the monster became associated with Christmas as Christianity spread in the region, Krampus became the counterpart to St. Nicholas, the more religiously affiliated version of Santa Claus. Nowadays, we have Christmas Eve, but originally it was Krampusnacht. According to tradition, the duo would arrive tonight, December 5th, and on December 6th, St. Nicholas Day, good kids would get to open their presents, while the bad ones would tend to their fresh wounds given to them by Krampus. And Krampus is still popular today, in some ways, more than he's ever been. Parades known as Krampuslauf take place each year in countries like Austria, where adults dress up as the monstrous figure, running through crowds in creepy costumes to scare the children in attendance. And Krampus has even made his way across the Atlantic to the US, in the form of a horror movie star and even an ironic, ugly Christmas sweater.
Yeah, put the backpack on your left. Yep.
I have seen this video recently. The slingshot ride at Winter Wonderland snapped with 2 riders on board. How did this happen? Slingshot rides come in 2 different types. The older style elastic ejector seat and the more modern cable ejector seat. The ride in this video was an elastic ejector seat. These slingshot rides work by attaching a pair of elastic bands to either side of the ride vehicle, and these bands undergo large amounts of tension when the ride vehicle is stationary. The bands will eventually snap. Just imagine stretching a rubber band 300 times a day every day for a year. It will eventually weaken and then snap. However, regular inspection should be able to detect when a band is weakening prior to snapping. Although it may look scary and dangerous, the ride did everything it was supposed to do if a cable was to snap. Amusement rides are all designed with safety as the #1 priority. So in this case, when the cable snapped, all motion to the ride vehicle was stopped, and the cage around the riders ensured they were unharmed after this incident. This was a very rare case, as the majority of elastic ejector seat cables will snap whilst the ride is on the ground. Press follow if you want to learn more about theme park safety.
It was Christmas Eve of 2015. I had recently gotten a new job as a psychiatric nurse, but I had to start with the overnight shifts, and that included Christmas Eve night, which was a Thursday. Well, technically it was a Friday by the time I arrived to work. But anyway, most of my shifts are slow and boring, with a lot of sitting around a computer for most of the night, since most of the patients are asleep during the hours that I was there. Occasionally I'd have to check on patients and observe their behavior, or deal with patients who would become restless in the middle of the night. Dealing with so many people with mental disabilities at once was a lot to take in at first, but the Christmas decorations scattered throughout the building brought a little extra cheer to the place. At night, the main lights in the hallways go out and a dim set of lights turn on. These dim lights mixed with the Christmas lights that had been hung up all over the place created a more relaxed, comfortable setting. There was one particular patient who had been creeping me out. Her name was Abatha. She was an old, sickly lady with severe schizophrenia. She oftentimes would mumble to herself incomprehensible things, and sometimes she'd say things out loud that I'd assume were directed at me, but she'd just be talking to herself. It was about 3 in the morning when I went to go check on Abatha, who had been awake the whole night. I came in and asked if she needed anything, and she just looked at me with a horrific smile and laughed. It gave me chills because I felt like I was witnessing something from a scary movie. She looked away from me and started muttering something. I didn't understand most of it, but the words that did pop out to me were, "Check the bathroom." I asked her to repeat herself, but she didn't acknowledge me. She just turned to her side and rested her head on the pillow. I tried to get her to confirm she wanted me to check the bathroom, but she wouldn't answer now. So I checked the bathroom across from her bed in her room, but as I expected, there was nothing out of the ordinary. I left her room and went back to my desk in the hall. Then I looked at the bathroom door across from my desk. My curiosity got the better of me, so I went into the bathroom, but the lights wouldn't turn on. I stood by the doorway listening for a moment, and I heard breathing and then a click sound from one of the stalls. I went to get the door stopper from behind the desk and wedged it under the bathroom door so that the light from the hall would let me see at least a little bit into the bathroom. I got on my knees and checked under the stalls from a distance. No feet could be seen in either of the stalls, though. One stall of the 2 had its door shut, though. I went up to it and stuck my eye through the crack of the door. It was really dark, but I felt like I could see something at the back of the stall. I got back down on my knees to look under the door, but when I did, I couldn't see what I thought I just saw. I got back up and took one more look through the crack of the door, and there was someone's face right on the other side, peeking through the crack just as I was. I almost fell to the floor in fright, but managed to run to the door and slam it shut. I grabbed the key from the desk and locked the bathroom door. I told another nurse that there was someone in the bathroom, but when we checked together, not only did the lights now work, but the stalls were both open and no one was inside either of them. It was impossible for someone to have left the room. I locked the door. That night, before my shift ended, I tried to question Abatha about what was in the bathroom, but she wouldn't answer me. Just as I gave up and walked to the door with my jacket on, I heard her say, "Merry Christmas." I turned and saw her giving me a smile. Only the smile didn't give me a good feeling. There was something unsettling about it, I had to turn and leave. I had to work with Abatha for a few more weeks before she was transferred to another center for hospice care. To this day, I still feel there was a connection between Abatha and whatever I saw in that bathroom. It's literally just one of those stories I just can't even try to understand or rationalize, but it still haunts me.
This is horror movies that'll keep you up. The Lodge is a spine-tingling psychological horror film that will have you on the edge of your seat from start to finish. This 2009 psychological horror film, directed by Severin Fiala and Veronica Franz, takes place during Christmas time, and that's basically the only connection to Christmas. Sorry. The story follows a young woman named Grace who becomes a caretaker of a remote lodge with her soon-to-be stepchildren. They're all struggling to cope with the recent passing of their mother, and as they begin to unravel, they are haunted by mysterious and terrifying events that suggest the presence of a malevolent force. The tension builds and the twist keeps coming as the family is forced to confront their deepest fears and darkest secrets here. With its chilling atmosphere, talented casting, and shocking ending, The Lodge is a must-see for fans of horror and suspense with a little bit of touch of the Christmas times.